The barracks was unusually quiet that morning. Sergeant Mia Torres stepped through the gates of her new unit, her boots hitting the ground with a steady rhythm. She was the first woman to join this particular group, a fact that had not gone unnoticed. The men exchanged glances, some barely hiding smirks, others whispering under their breath. "She won't last a week," someone muttered. Mia heard all, but she said nothing. She wasn't here to make friends or to ask for acceptance. She was here to prove something much bigger: her skill, her strength, and her place among them. As she moved toward the training area, she could feel their eyes on her back, measuring, doubting. The weight of years of unspoken bias settled heavily in the air. But Mia had been through worse. Growing up in a small town, she had learned early on that determination could push through walls built by doubt and fear. The military was no different. This wasn't about gender. It was about competence and courage. And she intended to show them exactly what she was made of. The morning drills were routine, but the tension was anything but. Each soldier went through their exercises, muscles tight and mind sharp. Then came the announcement that would change everything: a live-fire marksmanship competition. The instructor's voice was steady as he explained the rules. It was clear this was more than practice. This was a test of nerves, focus, and precision. The men exchanged knowing looks. This was their domain. The woman, Mia, was an unknown variable. Whispers circulated. "She doesn't stand a chance." "Who let her near a rifle anyway?" Mia caught every word, but it only fueled her resolve. When it was her turn, she stepped forward quietly, her hands steady despite the sudden increase in attention. The rifle felt familiar in her grip. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. She took a deep breath and positioned herself at the firing line. The world narrowed to the target ahead. The distant sounds of the unit faded into the background. All that mattered was the rifle, the target, and her steady breath. The first shot cracked through the silence. A perfect bullseye. Heads turned. A few eyebrows raised. She moved smoothly to the next target, her focus unwavering. Shot after shot, her bullets found their marks. The men watching began to grow silent, their laughter extinguished by the sound of her rifle. Doubt shifted to disbelief. This wasn't luck, it was skill, honed by discipline and hard work. One of the soldiers, a veteran named Jackson, who had been openly skeptical, watched her closely. He had spent years proving himself, and now, here was this woman calmly outshooting him. He couldn't look away. The room felt charged, like a shift in the wind, as the competition continued. Every round Mia fired made it clearer that she was not just keeping up, she was leading. By the halfway point, the dynamic in the unit had changed. Where there had been quiet sneers, now there was respect, quiet, but unmistakable. Some of the men lowered their rifles slightly, acknowledging the skill they hadn't expected. Mia didn't boast or taunt. She let her shooting do the talking. Each bullet was a statement: "I belong here." The air was thick with anticipation as the competition neared its end. Mia's heart beat steadily, her mind clear. This wasn't about winning alone. It was about breaking down the walls built on old assumptions. Her hands moved with practiced precision, the rifle steady as a rock. The final shot left the barrel and hit the target dead center. A hush fell over the training ground before applause slowly built, surprising everyone. The men who had doubted her now looked at her with a new understanding. Mia lowered her rifle and met their eyes, calm but proud. She hadn't just outshot them. She had changed their view of what was possible. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by quiet respect. For Mia, this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, but she had proven one undeniable truth: skill knows no gender. And for the first time since she arrived, the barracks felt like a place where she belonged. The announcement came suddenly, cutting through the usual morning chatter like a sharp knife. The instructor's voice was calm but firm as he declared a live-fire marksmanship competition. The entire unit was to participate. For most, it was routine, but for Mia, it was an opportunity, a chance to show what she was truly capable of. The men exchanged knowing smirks and whispered doubts. "This will be over quick," one said under his breath. "Let's see if she can even hit the target." Mia heard the murmurings, but her focus didn't waver. She felt the weight of their skepticism like a heavy cloak, but beneath it, a fire burned fiercely. The competition would test more than just shooting skills. It would test nerves, precision, and resilience under pressure. Soldiers who had been training together for years prepared their rifles and focused on the targets ahead. Mia moved quietly among them, methodical, her hands steady as she cleaned her rifle and checked the sights. Years of training had drilled these actions into her muscle memory. She wasn't nervous, she was ready. The men's glances lingered longer now, a mix of curiosity and doubt. When her name was called, Mia stepped forward, her movements deliberate but unassuming. The shooting line stretched before her, a row of hardened soldiers with eyes sharp as hawks. Some stared openly, others cast sideways glances. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, a silent tension that seemed to hang in the air. The first shot was hers to make. She raised the rifle, lined up the sights, and exhaled slowly. The trigger clicked. The bullet struck the target with a sharp, clean impact. Bullseye. The crowd's murmurs faltered. She didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. The shot spoke volumes. Another soldier shot next, hitting the target with decent accuracy. But Mia's focus was unshaken. One by one, she fired at each target down the line, her breathing steady, her hands unshakable. Each bullet found its mark, tight clusters of perfect hits forming again and again. The unit fell silent. The earlier laughter was gone, replaced by a growing realization that something unexpected was happening. Jackson, a seasoned marksman and one of the most vocal skeptics, narrowed his eyes. He had never seen anyone shoot with such calm precision, especially not a newcomer, and especially not a woman. His jaw tightened as he watched Mia methodically hit target after target. His own shots, once confident and assured, suddenly felt inadequate. The unspoken challenge was clear. Could he keep pace with this quiet force? The tension was palpable as the competition reached its midpoint. Mia was leading, and it wasn't by a small margin. The men who had once dismissed her now exchanged uneasy looks. They respected the discipline in her stance, the way she handled her rifle like an extension of her own body. There was no flashiness, no bravado, just pure, focused skill. The old hierarchy was shifting in real time. Mia was aware of every glance, every change in the room's energy. But she was not distracted. Her mind was focused on the target, the weight of a rifle, the rhythm of her breathing. This moment was hers to claim. It wasn't about proving the naysayers wrong. It was about proving to herself that she belonged here, among them, not just as a soldier, but as one of the best. As she moved into the final rounds, the pressure increased. The targets were smaller, the distances longer. Every shot counted. Her heart beat steadily, her hands never trembling. Around her, the unit held its breath. The atmosphere had shifted from doubt to respect, and now to quiet anticipation. When she fired the last shot, the sound echoed through the training ground like a declaration. The scores were tallied. Mia's name was at the top. The man who had mocked her before stepped forward, offering a nod of respect. Others followed. For the first time, the unit saw her not as an outsider, but as one of their own, a soldier whose skill was undeniable. Mia lowered her rifle, feeling the weight of their changed attitudes. The battle she had fought wasn't just with the rifle. It was with prejudice, doubt, and tradition. That day, Mia didn't just win a competition. She shattered expectations and opened a door for others who would follow. The men who had laughed were silent now, their respect earned. For Mia, The journey was far from over, but this victory was a turning point, a powerful reminder that true strength comes from within, and that sometimes the quietest voices make the loudest impact. The moment Mia pulled the trigger for her first shot in a competition, the atmosphere changed. The sharp crack of the rifle echoed across the training ground. A perfect bullseye appeared on the target. The men, who had moments ago been whispering doubts and exchanging smirks, suddenly went quiet. A few glanced at each other with raised eyebrows. No one said a word, but the disbelief was written plainly on their faces. Could she really be this good? Mia didn't flinch. She simply moved to the next target, her expression calm and steady, her hands sure and practiced. One by one, her shots found the center. Each bullet hit with precision that was almost uncanny. The men around her had started shooting, but their rounds were scattered. A few hits landed near the edge, some even missed. In contrast, Mia's bullets formed tight clusters, almost as if they were glued to the center of the target. The whispers of skepticism faded into silence, replaced by a growing sense of tension. What was happening here wasn't just good marksmanship, it was something exceptional. Jackson, the unit's veteran marksman who had been openly skeptical, watched her closely. He had prided himself on his skill for years and was confident no one could surpass him. But as Mia calmly and methodically went through her targets, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He had underestimated her. This was no novice. She was calm under pressure, controlled, and precise. She had the kind of focus that comes from years of hard work and unshakable confidence. The competition moved forward with increasing intensity. The targets grew smaller, the distances longer, and the pressure heavier. Every soldier was feeling it. Some were growing frustrated at their own scattered shots. Others shot carefully, but Mia's steady rhythm never faltered. She breathed deeply between shots, her muscles relaxed but ready. Her mind was locked on the target, shutting out every distraction around her. As the rounds progressed, the energy in the training ground shifted. Where there had been doubt, there was now curiosity. Where there had been sneers, there was now respect, quiet, but undeniable. Soldiers who had barely glanced at Mia before were now watching her every move, learning without even realizing it. Even the instructor's stern face softened with surprise. This was turning into more than just a competition. It was a lesson in humility. Mia's shooting was more than a display of skill. It was a quiet statement. She was proving that excellence wasn't tied to gender or appearance. It was tied to discipline, training, and heart. She wasn't trying to prove the doubters wrong with words or anger. Instead, she let each shot speak louder than any argument ever could. It was a slow, steady dismantling of prejudice with every bullet. The men who had doubted her began to lower their defenses. A few nodded in silent acknowledgement as she passed. Others clenched their jaws but couldn't hide their respect. The atmosphere was tense but respectful now. The old barriers were beginning to crumble, replaced by the growing recognition of talent. Jackson finally stepped forward as the final targets came into view. He stood beside her, rifle in hand, but he didn't speak. Instead, he watched her shoot the last rounds with an intensity he hadn't shown before. When Mia's last bullet hit the target dead center, the silence was complete. No one moved. Then, slowly, applause began to build, starting small but growing louder. It wasn't just a recognition of a win. It was an acknowledgement of a new reality. Mia lowered her rifle, her chest rising and falling steadily. She met Jackson's eyes, and he nodded, a wordless gesture of respect and acceptance. The men around her started clapping, some coming forward to shake her hand or offer a quiet congratulations. The woman who had once been the target of ridicule was now their top shooter, their equal, and perhaps even their best. In that moment, Mia realized something important. This victory wasn't just about marksmanship. It was about breaking through walls of doubt and prejudice. It was about showing that ability and courage come in many forms. She had earned her place not by fighting the men who doubted her, but by simply doing what she did best. The unit would never see her the same way again, and neither would she see them the same way. The seeds of respect had been planted, and with time, they would grow into something stronger. Mia's story was no longer just hers. It was a story of change, of possibility, and of quiet strength that could shake the foundation of tradition. As the sun set over the training ground, the men returned to their tents, thoughtful and subdued. Mia stayed behind for a moment, looking at her targets. Each bullseye was a small victory, a testament to her resolve. The laughter was gone. In its place was something far more powerful: respect earned through skill and determination. And this was only the beginning. Halfway through the competition, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The men who had started the day with smirks and whispered doubts now exchanged uneasy glances. The quiet laughter that had once filled the barracks was replaced by a tense silence. Sergeant Mia Torres was not just holding her own, she was leading. Each target she faced was met with unwavering focus, every shot placed with deadly accuracy. The impossible was happening before their eyes, and no one dared to interrupt the moment. Jackson, the unit's most experienced marksman, felt his confidence waver. He had been the best shooter in this unit for years, yet now he found himself struggling to keep pace. He studied Mia closely, trying to find a weakness, any hint of hesitation or flaw, but there was none. Her calm was unbreakable, her skill undeniable. For the first time in his career, Jackson felt a flicker of doubt creep into his mind. What if she really was better? The men around the firing line grew quieter still, some shifting uncomfortably as the realization sank in. This was more than just a competition. It was a challenge to their long-held beliefs. Many had assumed that a woman, especially a newcomer, couldn't match their years of experience. But Mia was rewriting the rules with each perfect shot. The hard truths were beginning to settle like dust in the afternoon sun. Skill and determination were not bound by gender. Mia's steady breathing and calm demeanor seemed to absorb the tension rather than contribute to it. Her fingers rested lightly on the rifle's trigger, her eyes locked on the distant target. Around her, the world faded away. The doubts, the whispers, the expectations, they all dissolved into the background noise. What remained was a singular moment of focus and precision. The men who had once sneered now watched silently, some leaning in with a grudging respect. Sergeant Ramirez, known for his tough exterior and sharp tongue, nodded once in approval. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. He had seen many soldiers come and go, but few had impressed him like Mia was doing now. Her shots weren't just good, they were exceptional, almost surgical in their accuracy. As the competition moved on to more difficult targets, Mia's lead became undeniable. Her scores climbed steadily, outpacing even the most seasoned shooters. The energy in the air shifted from skepticism to cautious admiration. The men were beginning to realize that this wasn't just about winning a contest. It was about breaking down invisible barriers. Mia's success was a powerful reminder that talent and dedication could come from unexpected places. The tension in the barracks was now palpable. Every shot Mia fired was met with a mix of anticipation and disbelief. The men held their breath as her bullets hit the mark again and again. It was a lesson in humility for many, a moment that challenged their assumptions and forced them to reconsider what it meant to be a soldier, a competitor, and a teammate. Even the youngest recruits, who had initially joked about Mia's presence, found themselves quietly impressed. They watched her carefully, learning from her technique and poise. Some exchanged glances, wondering how they had misjudged her so badly. Mia's quiet strength was reshaping their understanding of what it meant to be part of this unit. As the final rounds approached, the stakes grew higher. The targets were smaller, the distances greater. The pressure weighed heavily on everyone, But Mia's composure never faltered. Her hands remained steady, her breathing controlled. She was a portrait of focus and determination, embodying the very best qualities of a soldier. The men who had doubted her earlier now faced a hard truth. She was not just a capable shooter, but a leader in the making. Her performance was more than a personal victory. It was a turning point for the entire unit. The barriers they had built, sometimes without even realizing it, were beginning to crumble. Mia didn't speak much during the competition, but her presence was loud and clear. She had earned their respect not by demanding it, but by proving herself in the most fundamental way, through skill, persistence, and unwavering focus. The men, once her harshest critics, were now her allies in this silent battle of acceptance. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the training ground, the mood had transformed completely. The laughter was gone, replaced by quiet respect and a shared sense of something new unfolding. The unit was no longer just a group of soldiers bound by tradition. It was becoming a team united by trust, skill, and mutual respect. Mia lowered her rifle after the last shot. She didn't need to look at the scoreboard to know she had made her mark. The men around her looked at her differently now, with admiration, with recognition, with acceptance. And in that moment, she felt a quiet victory that went far beyond any competition. It was the victory of breaking through barriers, of rewriting expectations, and of claiming a place where she belonged. The day's events had proven one undeniable truth. True skill and courage transcend all boundaries. Mia's journey was far from over, but this moment had changed everything, for her and for everyone watching. The days after the competition were unlike anything Mia had expected. The quiet respect she earned had begun to ripple through the entire unit, changing the way the men treated her. It wasn't just about the shooting anymore. It was about trust, acceptance, and a recognition that she was no longer an outsider. The shift wasn't immediate, but it was undeniable. Conversations that once barely included her now flowed with ease. Eyes that had looked past her now sought her opinion. For Mia, this was the real victory. Jackson was among the first to approach her with a new kind of respect. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the training grounds emptied, he found her cleaning her rifle. He nodded silently, then spoke, his voice low and steady. "You shot better than anyone I've seen in years. I underestimated you." Mia looked up, meeting his eyes without hesitation. "I'm here to do my job, no matter what anyone thinks." His nod was slow, genuine. It was a turning point. Jackson's acceptance carried weight with the others, and soon the skepticism began to fade from the unit like a stubborn fog lifting at dawn. Mia's routine remained relentless. Early mornings, long hours of training, and endless drills. But now, she trained not just to prove herself, but to lead. The men who once doubted her began to seek her advice on marksmanship techniques, steadying their nerves, even strategy. The unit had transformed from a place of silent judgment to one of quiet collaboration. Mia's strength had become their strength. Her commanding officer took notice, calling her in for a private meeting. The room was stark, but the words spoken there were anything but. "Sergeant Torres," he said, "your performance during the competition was exceptional. But it's more than just skill. You're changing the mindset of this unit. That kind of leadership is rare." Mia nodded, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility settle over her. This was no longer just about her. It was about paving the way for those who would come after her. But not every moment was easy. Old habits die hard, and some in the unit still clung to their prejudices, hiding them behind gritted teeth and cold shoulders. Mia felt it, subtle but sharp, in certain looks and hushed conversations. She refused to let it break her. Instead, she used those moments as fuel, reminders that change takes time and that her presence alone was a challenge to outdated ideas. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling training exercise, a younger soldier stumbled under pressure. The unit watched with a mixture of frustration and impatience. Mia stepped forward, steady and calm. "Breathe," she said quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Focus on the target. It's not about speed, it's about control." The soldier met her gaze and nodded, finding strength in her words. When he finally took his shot, it was steady and true. The unit looked on, surprised not just by the shot, but by the shift in attitude. Mia wasn't just a competitor. She was a mentor, a leader. Word of Mia's impact began to spread beyond the unit. Other battalions heard of the woman who had outshot the best marksmen and changed the culture of her team. Invitations to speak, to train others, followed. Mia accepted quietly, always focused on the mission. She understood that her journey was part of something bigger, breaking barriers not just with a rifle, but with every step she took. The respect she earned was not handed to her. It was earned through relentless determination, quiet strength, and unwavering integrity. She became a symbol of what was possible, a reminder that talent and courage could come from anywhere, and that leadership was about lifting others up, not tearing them down. Late one evening, as the base settled into silence, Mia sat alone, reflecting on how far she had come. The doubt and laughter that greeted her arrival seemed like a distant memory. Now, there was purpose in every step she took, and hope in every glance exchanged with her comrades. The road ahead was still challenging, but she was no longer walking it alone. Her story was no longer just about one woman with a rifle. It was about breaking the mold, challenging assumptions, and inspiring change. Mia had started a quiet revolution, one bullet, one word, one action at a time. And in doing so, she had proven that true strength wasn't just in the shot fired, but in the courage to stand tall when no one believed you could. As dawn broke the next morning, Mia rose with the same determination that had carried her this far. The unit was ready for whatever came next, united not by tradition, but by respect. And Mia, standing among them, was ready to lead. The days following the competition brought a new rhythm to the unit's life. But with that rhythm came fresh challenges. Mia felt the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders, heavier than any rifle she had ever carried. The respect she'd earned was real, but it was fragile, something she had to nurture and protect. Not everyone was ready to embrace change so quickly. Some men still eyed her with skepticism, their silence sharp and cutting. Yet Mia's focus never wavered. She knew that true respect wasn't given, it was earned every single day. Training grew more intense. The officers pushed the unit harder than ever before, preparing for an upcoming field exercise that would test everything they had learned. Mia threw herself into the work with relentless determination. She was no longer just fighting to prove herself. She was fighting for the team. Every drill, every run, every shot fired became part of something larger. The men watched her closely, some silently admiring, others reluctantly accepting the undeniable fact. Mia was a leader. Jackson, once her fiercest critic, had become an unlikely ally. He started seeking her out during breaks, asking questions about her technique or sharing insights from his years of experience. It was an unspoken truce born of mutual respect. One evening, after a grueling day of drills, Jackson pulled Mia aside. "You've changed the game," he said quietly, his voice low but sincere. "I've been stubborn. You made me see what I was missing." Mia nodded, knowing the road to acceptance was rarely straight. "We all learn," she replied simply. That moment was a small victory, a bridge built where there had once been division. But the true test came during the field exercise. The unit was deployed into rugged terrain, tasked with a simulated mission that required coordination, strategy, and nerves of steel. The men looked to Mia not just as a soldier, but as a guide. The same hands that had steadied a rifle now helped navigate tricky paths and calm jittery nerves. Her calm under pressure was a beacon. When the unexpected happened, a sudden change in weather, equipment failures, and tense encounters, Mia kept the unit focused, her voice steady and commanding. During a critical moment, the team faced a simulated ambush. The tension was electric. Shots rang out, commands shouted over the chaos. Mia's instincts kicked in. She moved quickly, coordinating the men, directing fire, and securing the team's position. Her leadership turned what could have been disaster into a controlled, successful maneuver. When the exercise ended, the commanding officers praised her decisiveness and clarity under fire. The men who had once doubted her looked at her with new eyes, not just as a sharpshooter, but as a true leader. The victory was more than tactical, it was symbolic. Mia had shown that leadership wasn't about who carried the loudest voice or the biggest gun. It was about courage, clarity, and heart. Her presence had shifted the entire dynamic of the unit. The old hierarchy was being rewritten in real time, and the men were following her lead. As the days passed, Mia found herself mentoring more and more soldiers. She took time to share her knowledge, her experience, and most importantly, her belief that everyone could improve if they pushed beyond their limits. The unit grew stronger, not just in skill, but in spirit. The walls of doubt and prejudice continued to crumble, replaced by teamwork and respect. One afternoon, during a break, a young recruit approached Mia. Nervous and hesitant, he confessed his struggles with marksmanship and self-confidence. Mia smiled gently, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Focus on what you can control," she advised. "Breathe. Believe in yourself, because if you don't, no one else will." The recruit nodded, eyes brightening with newfound determination. Moments like these reminded Mia why her journey mattered, not just for her, but for everyone who would follow. Back at the base, the changes Mia had sparked were becoming part of the culture. The men no longer whispered doubts behind closed doors. Instead, they sought her out for guidance and inspiration. Her story had become a powerful testament to the strength of perseverance and the importance of breaking barriers. Late one evening, standing alone under the stars, Mia reflected on how far she had come. The journey had been hard, marked by challenges and setbacks, but also by moments of triumph and growth. She was no longer the woman they had laughed at. She was a soldier, a leader, and a symbol of change. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time, she felt truly ready. Her story was no longer just about marksmanship or proving herself in a competition. It was about resilience, courage, and the quiet strength to keep moving forward when the world doubts you. Mia had become more than a sharpshooter. She was a trailblazer, forging a new path for those who would come after her. As dawn broke over the base, Mia tightened her grip on her rifle, feeling the familiar weight and steadying calm. The unit was ready, and so was she. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity and growth for Mia and her unit. The training intensified as the reality of deployment loomed closer. The soldiers pushed themselves harder, knowing that soon everything they had learned would be tested in real-world conditions. Amid the grueling drills and endless routines, Mia's leadership became the anchor that held the unit together. Her presence was steady, a quiet force inspiring confidence in even the most uncertain soldiers. But the road to full acceptance wasn't without its challenges. Some of the older soldiers still struggled to shed their doubts. Quiet conversations about Mia's place in the unit lingered in the corners of the mess hall, their tone less harsh, but still hesitant. Mia heard the whispers, but chose to focus on what she could control: her actions, her dedication, and the trust she was building every day. She understood that changing hearts and minds was a slow, deliberate process. Patience, she reminded herself, was just as important as precision. During one intense training exercise, the unit was tasked with navigating a dense forest under simulated combat conditions. Visibility was low and tension was high. The men looked to Mia not just for her sharpshooting, but for her ability to lead under pressure. As they moved cautiously through the undergrowth, a sudden noise, a snapped branch, sent a wave of alert through the group. Mia was the first to react. She quickly assessed the situation and ordered the men to hold positions, signaling for silence. Her calm, decisive command cut through the rising panic like a knife. Minutes later, a young soldier stumbled, catching the attention of the entire unit. Instead of scolding or showing frustration, Mia moved to his side. She steadied him with a firm hand and whispered, "Focus. Breathe. You're part of this team." The soldier nodded, eyes steadying, and the unit resumed their movement. Moments like these cemented Mia's role, not just as a sharpshooter, but as a pillar of strength. The men began to see her not as an anomaly, but as an essential part of their survival. As the days passed, Mia's influence grew. She wasn't just teaching marksmanship. She was shaping the unit's spirit. During long nights around the campfire, soldiers shared stories, fears, and hopes. Mia listened, offering quiet encouragement and insight. Her humility and empathy broke down walls that skill alone never could. Trust blossomed, and with it, a sense of unity that no obstacle could easily break. One afternoon, the commanding officer called the unit together. The announcement was clear. Deployment orders had arrived. The mission was critical, and the stakes were high. Excitement and nerves rippled through the soldiers. For Mia, it was the moment all the training had prepared her for. She stood taller, the weight of responsibility settling comfortably on her shoulders. This was her chance to prove that her leadership extended beyond drills and competitions, that she was ready to face the unknown alongside her team. The deployment itself was a trial unlike any before. Harsh terrain, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of danger tested every skill and ounce of courage the unit possessed. Through it all, Mia's steady hand guided them. She coordinated movements, kept morale high, and when shots were fired, her accuracy was unmatched. Her presence was a beacon of calm in chaos, a source of strength for the men who had once doubted her. During a critical engagement, the unit found themselves pinned down by enemy fire. The situation was dire, and panic threatened to take hold. Mia's voice cut through the fear. "Hold your ground. We move together or not at all." Her words sparked a renewed determination. Under her guidance, the unit executed a daring maneuver that turned the tide of the battle. When the dust settled, the soldiers looked at Mia with awe and gratitude. She had saved lives, not just with her rifle, but with her courage and quick thinking. News of the unit's success and Mia's leadership spread quickly through the ranks. Reports highlighted her as a trailblazer, a soldier whose skill and heart made a difference in the toughest moments. The respect she had fought so hard to earn blossomed into admiration and even inspiration. Young recruits looked up to her. Veterans recognized her strength, and commanders saw her potential for even greater roles. Despite the accolades, Mia remained grounded. She knew the battle was far from over, not just in the field, but in the ongoing struggle against doubt and prejudice. But with each challenge she faced, she grew stronger, more determined. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, skill, and unshakable resolve. As the unit prepared to return home, Mia felt a quiet pride. The woman who had once been laughed at had become a symbol of change, a beacon of hope. Her story wasn't just about marksmanship or military achievement. It was about breaking barriers and forging a new path. And she was just getting started. The return to base was nothing like the quiet arrival Mia had imagined in her earliest days. Instead, it was a whirlwind of cheers, slaps on the back, and a newfound sense of camaraderie that echoed through the barracks. The unit had faced their toughest challenges together, and now their respect for Mia was no longer just whispered. It was proudly voiced. The women and men who had once doubted her now celebrated her as a leader who had earned her place through skill, courage, and unwavering determination. Mia stood at the center of it all, humbled but strong. She looked around at the faces, some familiar, some new, but all united by the journey they had shared. The laughter and camaraderie filled the air, and for the first time, Mia truly felt at home. It was more than victory, it was validation, the kind that comes not from words, but from the bond forged in fire. Her commanding officer approached, his usual stern expression softened by a rare smile. "Sergeant Torres," he said, "you didn't just meet expectations, you exceeded them. Your leadership saved lives and inspired this entire unit. We're proud to have you with us." The weight of his words settled on Mia like a mantle she was ready to wear. It was the recognition she had fought for, not for glory, but to pave the way for others who would follow. The days after the deployment were filled with debriefings, medical checks, and long talks about the future. Mia found herself sought after by younger soldiers eager to learn from her experience. She shared stories not just about tactics or shooting, but about resilience, the quiet strength it took to keep going when the world doubted you. Her words resonated, lighting a fire of hope and determination in those who listened. Outside the base, news of Mia's accomplishments began to spread. Articles, interviews, and features highlighted her journey from underestimated recruit to respected leader. She became a symbol not just for women in the military, but for anyone facing seemingly insurmountable odds. The story of the woman who outshot the entire unit and changed their hearts was a beacon for change, inspiring many to question old assumptions and embrace new possibilities. Yet Mia remained focused on the road ahead. She knew that one victory didn't erase years of bias and skepticism. There were still battles to fight, inside the ranks, in the minds of people who clung to outdated views. But she faced these challenges with the same determination that had carried her through training, competition, and combat. Each step forward was a victory, no matter how small. One afternoon, as she walked through the training grounds, Mia spotted a group of young recruits struggling with their marksmanship. She stepped forward, offering guidance with patience and clarity. Watching their faces light up with newfound confidence, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was her mission now, not just to excel herself, but to lift others up, to create a future where talent and courage were recognized without bias. The unit had transformed, and so had Mia. She was no longer just a soldier fighting to prove herself. She was a leader shaping the future. Her story was a testament to what could happen when determination met opportunity, and when courage refused to be silenced. It was a legacy built not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared to believe. As the sun set over the base, casting long shadows across the training fields, Mia stood tall. The journey had been hard, filled with doubt, struggle, and moments of loneliness. But it had also been filled with triumph, respect, and the quiet satisfaction of breaking barriers. The woman who had once been laughed at for grabbing a rifle had become a symbol of strength and change. Her path was far from over, but with every step, Mia knew she was paving the way for those who would come after her, soldiers who would no longer be judged by their gender, but by their skill, heart, and courage. The future was theirs to shape, and Mia was ready to lead them into it. Her story was no longer just about her, it was about all of them. It was a story of hope, resilience, and the power of one person to change everything. And that story was only just beginning.